Jaren here from Imaging Resource, and this is going to be a kind of off-the-cuff video. As you might be able to tell, I'm not in my office or my studio. I'm on the road, and I'm actually in an airport right now. That's what you're seeing behind me. But I really wanted to take this time to talk about the S1H when it was fresh in my mind after just using it. Now, we've already done a longer video about the S1H where we talk about the build quality, the specs, that sort of thing. And I'm going to link to that video in the description below, but you can also click to it right now if you're interested in that. But what we're going to talk about here is just a couple little things about this camera and kind of figuring out where it fits and who it's for, as well as looking at some image quality. I've got my laptop open in front of me, and I have some clips here that I took today with the S1H in various different formats. But for the most part, there's something I really need to make clear first. If you don't shoot in log, have no desire to shoot in log, then this camera and this video subsequently are not for you. Shooting in standard is great, but as you'll see here, standard is not what you're going to want to be shooting in when you're shooting with these Panasonic video cameras. For example, I'm not shooting in standard right now. I'm shooting in log on my GH5 for this video. This is a video camera for professionals interested in working in high-end video. It's essentially a Panasonic EVA 1 packed down into a smaller $4,000 package. When you look at the specs and what it's capable of doing, it's actually exactly like what you'd expect out of a Vericam. It just doesn't have SDI ports. Pretty much everything else about it screams Vericam. So it's gonna be just a video camera. Sure, it does take stills. I don't want to put that off. Like, this camera is actually still a hybrid camera. The stills actually look like they're gonna be pretty good, despite the fact that there is a low pass filter on there. One of the things that was important to me was to see where this new camera kind of stacked against the S1, which still hasn't really come into its own yet. It just barely got that filmmaker's upgrade where you could shoot in log and in 422 10-bit. To really compare the S1 to the S1H, I decided to take a look at the log profiles and the standard profiles side by side. So you can see the Panasonic S1 in its standard profile with no adjustments made to it at all on a pre-production 24 to 70mm lens. And then next to it you can see now the S1 with V-Log, a graded V-Log that is also using that same pre-production lens. And you can see there is a difference. Now, you can do a lot more in post with these, but this is just a very quick and dirty edit in V-Log. But you can see that the dynamic range is vastly expanded. This next clip is the S1H in standard profile, and you can see it's really crushed, like the blacks really crushed. It's also really saturated. It looks to me significantly different than the standard profile on the S1. And then the S1H V-Log looks really similar to the S1. So shooting side by side in 422 10-bit in 4K, you're not going to see a big difference between these two cameras. I think the reason you might want to get an S1H is not just because you're looking at 4K 422 10-bit files, and I'll get into that in a second. I'm going to show you a couple more clips side by side. This one is the same kind of run through, the S1 in standard, the S1 in graded log, followed by the S1H in standard and the S1H in graded log. If you're wondering why the clips are so yellow, it's because the lights they chose in here were straight yellow. So I apologize if the color is really hard to gauge anything out of. So looking at those two sets of clips side by side, you can kind of tell that it's going to be really challenging to tell the difference between an S1 footage shot in 422 10-bit in log and an S1H footage shot in the same settings. Their standard profiles do look different. I think that the S1H is far more saturated and contrasty. I don't like it very much at all. But the thing is, if you're shooting on an S1H, you're probably not shooting in standard. And honestly, if you're shooting on an S1, I don't recommend shooting in standard on that either. The log profile is so good, why wouldn't you just shoot in log? You have all the data there, and grading takes a couple seconds. I think what you want when you look at the S1H is the functionality of the camera. If you're looking for something that's more like a camcorder, but in the form factor of a hybrid camera, that's exactly what the S1H is. There is one other thing it can do, and that's shoot in 6K. Now, when I saw what it can do in 6K, they said that it's in a 3:2 form factor, which in my mind didn't make sense. I didn't understand what that was going to look like. I thought that sounded bad. Like, when would I ever use that? Let me show you. So this is a clip taken on the S1H, and it's been graded. So this is in 420 10-bit. And it looks really nice. It's quite sharp and it's beautiful. And you think to yourself, well, yeah, this looks fantastic. I would happily shoot this. Well, the thing is, that's a 6K clip. There's more to it than that. Let's back out and I can show you what the entire clip actually looks like. So this is what it actually was. What you just saw was me at 100% in 4K. You can now see the possibilities when you're shooting in 6K, even in a 3:2 format. In fact, the 3:2 format I can completely ignore that. When you drop this into a 4K timeline, that is a ton of room to work with. It's incredible what you can do with this and the amount of detail that is in there when you're looking at the 6K file. Beyond that, if you don't want to worry about having the letterboxing on the sides and you just want straight 6K file that can immediately go straight into 4K, well, that's what you can do with the 5.9K profile. With the 5.9K file, it's exactly the same thing as the 6K file, except that it just cuts the top and the bottom off correctly so that when it scales in to fill the side of a 16:9 frame. So this clip here is the exact same thing. I have zoomed in from a 6K to 4K in editing, but the actual clip is the one to follow. Look how much room you have to work with there. It's huge, the amount of space that you have to work in. And even though it's in 420, it's in 10-bit. So though you might not have the color data necessarily, you do have the shadow and highlight data. So all of the stuff that I like to use log for, which is that expanded dynamic range, is still present here, and it looks really good. From what I can tell in the first few clips that I've taken, it grades really, really well. I am so excited about how good this footage looks. So why do we shoot in 6K? Why would we need 6K? Well, in editing, you want as much room as you can for stabilization, for reframing, for zooming or cropping, all that sort of stuff. And if you're mastering in 4K like we do for this YouTube channel, for example, well, that's kind of limiting if you only have 4K cameras. That is to say, you can't have any extra space. You have to get it right the first time, and that's it. But now in 6K, I have so much more room to work with. I can stabilize, I can change the aspect, I can change the cropping, all of that, and I have so many pixels to work with that I can do that quite a bit without much concern. Look, there's a ton of stuff to talk about with this camera, and honestly, for most, it's not going to be the camera for you. The S1 is likely going to be a better choice for people who want to do both photo and video. They're not hardcore into video, maybe they don't shoot log all the time. Yeah, definitely go S1. S1H is a very niche camera. It's very specific to those who really want to push the next limit. Like, what's the next thing they can make specifically in video? And as you can see, it gets me really excited because this camera does stuff that no other camera right now does, especially at the $4,000 price point. It's wild that this camera is $4,000. Here's the thing, if you want to movies or television for Netflix, there's a specific list of cameras that you have to use to ever be considered. What if this camera gets considered for that? Panasonic's already on the list. Their EVA 1's on the list, their Vericams are on the list. So what if this camera can make it on there? I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility. In fact, I know they're working on it. Panasonic wants this camera to be Netflix approved. You know what that would do? You know how many cameras that would move for them? It would be huge. This would be not only the most affordable camera on that list, it would be the most affordable camera that was also full frame. It's so exciting to me to think of a world where more people have access to creative tools to one of the largest platforms on the planet. I don't know, I've spent this whole video gushing about how excited I am about what this camera can do, but if you've stuck around this long, hopefully you are too. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, but otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.